Hello, Internet. You're listening to the Holocaust Bantersnatch, and joining me today... Oh, hang on a minute. I'm getting make sure this call is legal. Pop up. Okay, let's start again.
Should have left that in. That was brilliant. Because, oh God, yeah, of course it would say that. We've been talking about bestiality on the internet earlier.
Bantersnatch.
This is the Bantersnatch.
Awesome. Candace.
Hello, Internet. You're listening to the Holocaust Bantersnatch, and joining me here for the first time is Bouncy Ball.
All right.
I am all right. Are you all right? You don't sound all right.
Oh, I've had a whole day of just bashing things with hammers. I had to take some rugby studs out of a boot earlier with some masking tape.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, today we're going to talk about apps, and here's my new jingle. Tex talks about apps. Aha. So what do you think of that?
That is exactly what it says on the tin. If you then go on to talk about apps, which I assume that's what you're going to do.
Yeah, I'm quite proud of the aha bit. Should we play it again? Okay,
Yeah,
here we go.
play it again.
Tex talks about apps. Aha. There, you feeling that?
I really am. When now you've said that, I've got the whole song running in my head, but just replaced with your lyric over and over again.
That always irritated me, that song, because they sang let's tell it how it is and how it should be, how it could be, how it was, and of course how it should be, and then they don't.
No.
They just ramble on about a prostitute for a couple of minutes, which is basically what I do whenever I get down the pub.
Yeah, well, you know. And that's
so I can sympathise with them, but
the two marry up quite nicely.
It's unprofessional. It's simply unprofessional.
Yeah, well, let's keep professional and let's talk about apps.
Okay, what came out last night?
My Uncle Terry, but we're not supposed to be talking about that. No, it was Carmageddon Fun Size. I know they've changed the name now. It's now just Carmageddon, and I preferred Fun Size because it made me think it was like a Milky Way. But yeah, Carmageddon
Fun Size.
Yeah.
And we both stayed up, didn't we? We stayed up like loyal fans.
Yes.
For the midnight launch.
Yeah.
And it didn't happen because we don't live in America.
Which is weird, because when Burnout Crash came out for iOS, it did come out at midnight, which is why I was so confident to sit there and tweet the people who made the game and go, I'm staying up. And they retweeted me, and a load of people I've never met, never spoke to, retweeted it as well. And they kind of got in on it. So I like to think that I wasn't alone. Well, obviously I wasn't alone because you were doing it too, in my disappointment at midnight of going, refresh. Oh, no. Refresh. Oh, what, Armageddon wheels? No. What, Worms to... no,
Worms to Armageddon. No, we don't want Worms Armageddon.
And so, yeah. And then when it...
so they retweeted you and didn't correct you. That's just classy. Well, I tell you who I got attention from on Twitter last night.
Oh, yeah?
Tim Sutton.
Right. Names rings a bell.
He's the creepy guy in the mask that kills people in Marble Hornets.
Ah, right, yes.
And he favoured basically the latest episode of Marble Hornets. Tim and Jay go looking for the shed where they were forcibly dragged after being knocked out, and the shed's not there anymore.
Right.
So I tweeted saying, maybe there isn't just one shed. Maybe there's two sheds. Maybe it's Alex Two Sheds Crayley. And Tim from the show actually saw it and favorited the tweet.
That's good.
So I'm like, I'm the king of the world!
Yeah, I always get that whenever Julian Rignall messaged me back on Twitter. When I was a kid, I wrote about 50 letters to Meme Machines with pictures and letters, and I never got published once. And if I'd have realised, if I could have gone back in time and said to that kid, don't worry about it, save your stamps. In a few years' time, there'll be a way you can instantly message him and he'll respond because he's got nothing better to do these days. So yeah, I can now just say, what do you think of this rip-off of Lemmings on iOS? And he'll go, well, it's definitely a rip-off. And I'm like, yes, you agreed with me as well. I've just replied, but you've actually confirmed that it's a rip-off to me just validating everything I've ever said about rip-offs of Lemmings. So yeah, it's a really good feeling, and yet kind of a bit weird because it's just essentially it's just a button click. All they have to do is just a button click, but they chose that tweet to a button click, not somebody else's.
There's
tweet.
an ugly flip side to that. It's just a button click culture, though. Do you know Skrillex?
I'm aware of their work. Yes.
His work, yes. A while ago, he posted on Facebook for his fans. He sometimes does this thing where he says, "Here, have a listen to this. I like this song very much. This is a big influence on me." Which is, it seems a simple thing to our modern eyes, but it's incredible, really, that one of your music idols can say to you, "Here, come over here, mate. Have a listen to this," as easily as if he'd invited you back to his gaff after the pub. I mean, imagine if Lemmy from Motorhead invited you back to his house after the pub and said, here's my music collection, have a look at this. And this is what you can do with the internet, which is brilliant. But he posted a YouTube video of, I think it's Come to Papa or Come to Daddy by the Aphex Twin.
Come to Daddy, yeah.
Come to Daddy by Aphex Twin, which I think is a masterpiece of a video. Really good song as well. And the comments on it were saying, like, that was crap. I kept asking myself, when are they going to drop the bass? That was very light. V disappointed, Skrillex. It's like, the internet really has bred a special breed of twat, whereby your idol can say to you, here, mate, come over here and have a look at this. And then people turn round and tell them, no, your taste is wrong.
But then
anyway,
it's all
let's
good.
crack on, shall we?
Yeah, so Carmageddon came out eventually.
How are you liking it?
Oh, I'm really liking it. It's been great saying about this whole kind of thing with Twitter. I've been reading other people's responses to it today, just by looking at tweets. A lot of hate for the game. And I've been kind of questioning some people, just saying, did you play the original game? Did it have really, really tight control method? Did it not just slide around all over the place? It's not a racing game. It's not a simulation. And yet people kept going, oh, the controls are terrible. I could barely drive in a straight line. You couldn't anyway. That was the whole point. You're not supposed to be driving in a straight line. You're supposed to be sliding around corners and mowing over pedestrians accidentally and then doing a replay of it and pretending it was intentional afterwards. It's everything I loved about the original game. When I went to Eurogamer, I talked to the guy behind it, and I said it was the first and only game where I've ever broken a keyboard while playing it. And it was around a friend's house because the keyboard was handbrake, and I used to just slam it.
Seriously? The first game I ever played broke a keyboard with was Hypersports.
Wow. See, I had joysticks for most of that kind of thing. But yes,
I've got 2 joysticks with it as well.
So yeah, I would slam this, and every time he'd be like, "Don't push it so hard." And I was like, "It's a keyboard. You can't break a keyboard just by banging the keys, obviously." And one day it just cracked and just dropped, and all the springs had gone, and I just thought, actually, that's testament to that game. That's I've obviously played it a lot. I used to play that and Blood because he had a shareware version of Blood, so I used to go around his house to play him. And I went round. I'm really good friends with him now, but only because of Carmageddon. Because I had to go to his house to play it, so I had to kind of feign friendship, and then obviously over time things developed, and you have to sort of say, well, I haven't just been coming around for 2 years to play a game in your PC. We're friends. I moved near his house as well accidentally, which doesn't help. It's. I mean, for anybody obviously that's never played it, it was released under a brilliant marketing ploy it was a team of 7 people, I think, originally. They made a game with no marketing budget, so they asked to submit it to BBFC, knowing full well it wouldn't be classified, and therefore it would be in all the papers, and therefore would be desirable for anybody who wanted something they shouldn't have. And it worked beautifully. And it was you just had to see the box in the window of a shop, and you're like, oh, it's that game. It's that game. And I can't think of many others that weren't, I don't know, tied into a movie or something that I actually got excited about the potential of owning at that time. So, it was, I played it for ages and ages and ages, and got it on the iPad. And obviously, I'd had a bit of a go at Eurogamer, but once you settle into the control scheme, you're fine. It's absolutely fine. But it's just people are kind of. I think they've been too spoiled with really fine controls on a joystick. There are very few iPad-related driving games that have a solid control scheme anyway, which is why Carmageddon's perfect, because you don't have to. You can just go off a track, hit a barrier, flick over the top, land on top of a cow, and it's fine. That's part of the game. And any other game, that'd be it. You'd have gone off the side, you'd be reset, put on the track.
You'd have rage quit.
Exactly. People would be like, oh god, I've just gone from first to fifth. Well, there is no first place in Carmageddon. You win when you get through the checkpoints. You wipe out all the other cars, or, as I've only ever done the once, kill all
the pedestrians.
City.
Yeah.
And there is an achievement for that this time, so that will be enough to make me want to do it again.
Yeah. I mean, I was playing Carmageddon before I got into driving games.
Right.
And after that, it was Sega Rally that got me into driving games.
Yep.
And I played that son of a bitch like a monk. And I could never get anywhere on it. And then one night, I came back from the pub at about 2:00 in the morning. It was Newcastle under Lyme I was in. And they were doing a free Guinness promotion in all the pubs.
Right.
But you could only have like one free pint, so everyone was just going from pub to pub and getting absolutely soaked. And we ended up back at home, and I can't remember how I got home, but I sat down and played Sega Rally, finished it, even the secret track,
Right.
and I came in second at the end of it, and I was in first place against the ghost car until the last bend when he overtook me.
Yeah.
So after that, I was into driving games. And before I was into driving games, I had a shot of Carmageddon back in the day, and I thought, yeah, this is really fun. Having gone through a lot of driving games, it's now pissing me off because the controls are so loose. But I'm not going to give up on it.
No.
I'm gonna keep with it until I learn its groove.
That's exactly it. I mean, when I was at the show, they were on it was on the snow level. So obviously straight away, you think, well, is that the snow I'm slipping on? Because it was an ice patch. You could pretty much just slid all over the place. And so I said, oh, can I just change it? So I changed to the second one, the Coastal Carnage, where you've got that big drop down into the cows. And within, I'd say, 2 minutes of playing, all I did is I didn't try and do the race at all. I just stood trying to get a handle on the controls, and all I was doing was trying to drive down the line, pull a handbrake turn, spin it round, 180, back up again, and just do that a couple of times. And once I got that, I was pretty much able to flick it around and do exactly what I used to do. I was doing J-turns and barrel rolls and everything, and I could remember doing on a keyboard. And people said, oh, you can't compare it to the keyboard. Well, actually, the keyboard's pretty much the same thing. You're still pushing buttons that kind of don't really relate. So I think it was about 9 buttons you had to push for Carmageddon. Because you had left, right, you had accelerate, you had brake, you had handbrake, you had repair, you had recover. So you had all that stuff. That's all mapped out nicely, and it's in good places. And at no point do my thumbs feel like they shouldn't be where they are. It does feel kind of right. But yeah, I think it's like you say, there's been a huge evolution in the last 15 years from that to this. I mean, for me, I hadn't played many driving games. The only other one I played was, I think, Need for Speed 2 or something like that. It was the one with the movie set in it. And that was the only one I'd really played outside of things on the Speccy.
Sorry, I keep sniffing.
No, you're fine. You're fine. That's part of the joy of this. But yeah, so I played things like what's it called? Super Off-Road, and
I tell you what I want to play next as a iOS reboot off the back of this. Quarantine.
The name's familiar, but you're gonna have to remind me on that one.
It was basically Escape from New York in cars.
Okay.
And you could you could trick your car out. It was sort of like Crazy Taxi, but with guns on the car.
Okay, yeah.
And there was a button where you could lean out of the side windows with an Uzi and do drive-bys.
Yeah, I'm now looking at it. And it's got the best game box I've ever seen in my life. Well, probably not the best ever, but it was just a red box with a windscreen wiper clear and a patch of white, which is genius.
Can I just tell you why I broke a keyboard playing Hypersports?
Yeah, go ahead.
Debbie McGee.
What?
You remember, I think it was Head of the Class or Top of the Class, there's that game show where they used to play Paperboy?
Yes.
Well, on some of the episodes, they would play Hypersports,
Right.
and that got me obsessed with it. I think I was actually too young to be wanking. So when I was sitting there with my Spectrum keyboard going, I think that was where the frustration was going.
Yeah. Well, there you go. I used to love
Right.
those shows. I used to have it on Live and Kicking and Going Live and stuff when I used to have people playing Magic Pockets over the phone.
No. Weird
What?
Dreams. Do you remember when they used to play Weird Dreams?
Yeah, a bit.
King?
Yeah, not as much as I remember Magic Pockets, just because that was the one that I had at home. So I kind of like, oh, play Magic Pockets.
Awful game.
Yeah, that was the thing. I mean, Magic Pockets was a great game, and what I loved about it is it was just somebody pushing their buttons on the phone, and then somebody was just with the control pad in the hand pushing things as it came up on the prompt. So okay, he's push down, and nobody ever seemed to learn at all. They'd watch the same thing all the time. It's what do you do? Collecting coins, throwing. It's just that.
Wonky donkey.
The fact that kind of the idea of just ringing up and playing a video game with your mobile phone, but your phone at home. You couldn't do it if you had a dialer phone either. You had to have touch tone, which I always thought was like, if you've got one of those old fangled angle phones, you can't play video games on the telly. You've got to have one of these touch tone phones. It's it was. People forget about that. It's so easy now. You can load up Facebook and you can play games just by clicking around, but them old days, you had to push the button 5 times just to get somewhere. But yeah, so no, back to Carmageddon.
This is the Bantersnatch.
I was going to say, can we move on a bit? Have you got any other maps that you want to talk about, or can I go on to my random shit?
I'll talk about one, if I may, that I've been playing a little bit of. It's called Star Sky, and I'd never heard of it. A friend of mine said it looked like it was up my street, and it's not so much a game. They call it an interactive experience, and that's exactly what it is. I think it's made by a little team in Sweden, and the idea
Star
is
Sky and Hutch.
No, it's not. No, that might be the sequel where he gets a rabbit. But this one is it's. I mean, some people say it's like Limbo. It's nothing like Limbo. It's basically there's a foreground that is silhouetted of trees and bushes and grass and this man. And then the background is just a starry sky with the moon in it. And you move along.
I'm looking at it now, yeah.
Yeah, you just literally hold anywhere on the pad to make you walk forward. Hold it in 2 places, he'll run. When you get to a certain point, the music is all based around your sound, so you have your headphones on. And at some point, you'll hear the music will start chiming. If you stop, there are interactive points where you can pause, and if you wait for the right amount of time, something might happen, or it might happen in another version of your game. So you can pick up a rose, then stand next to a lady while holding the rose. You'll give her the rose, and she'll follow you. And so there's all these things. And each time you play it through, it remembers what you did last time. So you can then do something slightly different again. And there's about, I think, 25 different activities you can trigger. But it was just a really, it's a short, essentially it's like 2 minutes long to get from beginning to end. And you kind of think, well, what if I'd have done that? What if I hadn't spoke to the person? What if I hadn't gone here? And it was just a really nice, simple little thing. And I kind of like.
So do you have direct control over the character?
I'd say indirect, in that you control when he walks, how fast he walks, when he stops, and how long he stops for. But you don't control exactly what happens to him. You have these points where the sound will change, and you know that something can happen if you choose to stop and let it happen.
I've heard of this kind of format before. Did you ever play Pac-Man 2 on the SNES?
No.
That was a point-and-click adventure where Pac-Man is walking around. You don't actually get to control him directly, but you get to drop items into his path, and contextually affect how he behaves to solve puzzles. And it's based on a game called Wonder Project, where you have to affect the actions of a Pinocchio-style robot boy.
Right.
In order, well, there's a ROM of it. There's a fan translated ROM of it, and it's an incredible game. Really, really good. It's well worth a shot if you're into your emulation scene. I have been playing. Well, I've been playing a bunch of things. I played through Super Brothers Swords and Sorcery because I saw it on the App Store and I recognised it from the Humble Bundle.
Yeah.
And that was great.
Right.
I've had a shot at Girls Like Robots by Adult Swim, which is a superb game. What else did Adult Swim do? Monster Take My Condo, which is a goodie.
Yeah.
Bad Piggies, obviously, still riveted to that. Fantastic game.
Which I still haven't bought because I'm still struggling with the concept of paying more for an iPad version in comparison to an iOS version. I think if it's a universal one, I think they should just be universal. And it bothers me that they charge me more to have it on the iPad.
I would just swallow your pride and go for it. It's well worth it. It's one of the best mobile games I've ever played.
I will do. Do you know? Actually, I had a kind of a moment of self-persuasion where I looked at the amount of apps I've downloaded over the last year and pretty much just deleted straight away because they were either on like a temporary price drop or they were free for a day. And I thought actually some of these games could be really good, and I've just dismissed them immediately to put a bigger game on. So that's why I kind of went back to it and played this Star Sky, because it was just something I hadn't heard of. I thought actually they're the sort of things I should be playing, as much as I love the larger games, as much as I love the kind of. I've got Broken Sword, which I've never taken off, so I've now removed that because I just keep going back to it all the time. And so yeah, I think I will grab it once we get past Christmas. I think I won't buy any new apps unless I'm kind of really kind of keen to do so, just for a short period of time and catch up with what we haven't done.
Yeah.
But,
so yeah, done that. And what else have I been playing? Anomaly and The Room.
yes.
Which everyone told me was incredible, and I finished it in less than 2 hours.
Well, that doesn't stop it being incredible.
Oh, yeah, but for the price.
Well, see, now I've been debating this on and off in various different places for the last few weeks about pricing on the iOS store, and actually I'm getting a bit fed up with 69p games because there are some incredible games at 69p. Absolutely brilliant games.
I paid 69p for Bad Piggies, and I'm still glued to it like weeks later.
Yeah.
And I paid £2 for The Room, and then I'm done by the end of my somewhat extended coffee break.
See, but here's the thing. The way I look at it is, if I went into, say I went to the cinema, right, and I pay £8 and I go and see a film that's an hour and a half, I wouldn't feel bad about that. I'd say, well, I've seen my film. That's the hour and a half. With the iOS store, we've been so kind of conditioned to say you can get a great experience that lasts forever. I mean, Angry Birds franchise has been brilliant at this. You pay the minimum amount, and they constantly drip feed new content over a huge period of time. So that value just increases. But actually, if they'd have said to me, Bad Piggies as a universal app for $5 with continued support, I would have no problem buying it because I know that £5 well spent. If it was on, say, the Xbox Live Arcade, you wouldn't be able to get that game on the Xbox. Well, they've just released the Angry Birds trilogy for £30 on disc on the Xbox. You know,
I'd actually forgotten that. That always makes me laugh.
Yeah, and people are buying it. I've had people at my shop desperate to try and get hold of the 3DS version. I was like, how bad does it have to get where you have a portable device in your hand that costs you £150 and it's not an iPod, and you're then spending another £30 to put a game that you can get for a lot cheaper, if not free versions. And yeah, it's mind-boggling. I think actually, I wish more developers would have confidence enough in their product to say, pay £2, pay £3, because they should, because they are totally worth that amount of money.
Yeah.
You take the port of Jet Set Radio on the Xbox. That's 1,200 points, 800 points, something like that, which is £7 or £8. And I don't regret paying that. But if it was ported over to the iPad and they charged £8, there would be an uproar of people saying, "Oh, so it's just a slightly polished version of the game, and for £8, how dare they?" It's like, well, that's how much it costs. So I think with the Room, in some respects, I'm glad they went for the price they went for. It's obviously it's clear I'm a huge fan of it, but I just think Bad Piggies should have cost more. I think the Room was perfectly pitched. With Carmageddon, obviously they did it free for the first 24 hours. Then it's £1.49 as a trial price, and I think it's going up to £1.99. I've grabbed it as a freebie, but I'm still going to gift a couple of copies to make sure their money goes through, because I think the game shouldn't have been free, really. It's nice. It's a really good gesture for people that got involved in the Kickstarter. But everybody else is now jumping all over it, and they didn't give a shit.
Yeah,
So it's a free game.
I think I will do the same. I mean, even though I'm not feeling the love for the game at the moment, I think even if I don't get into the game, I will go and give them a couple of quid for it, just for their own goodwill.
This is the Bantersnatch.
I mean, for God's sake, I paid £3 for Red Dwarf the other week on iTunes.
Yeah.
I don't regret it.
No.
New series of Red Dwarf is fucking blinding. It's the best one since the original series.
Oh, well, they did the moose joke in that first episode. The moose joke I just thought was as good as their writing ever was. Just brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Was it? Yeah, it was the first episode, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was the first episode.
That whole joke, I tried to paraphrase it to somebody else the next day.
It doesn't work, does it?
And out of context, it just doesn't work at all. But in that context of that kind of set and those characters, it just became funnier and funnier and funnier. And having the cat just be so dismissive about it and so almost arrogant about it just worked sublimely. And I'm after that horrendous Back to Earth special.
It's not canon. It's not canon. La 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 la.
But that's not whether it's canon or not. The irrelevancy of it is still the fact that that was what they wanted to come back with after an extended break. And I was so concerned. And then they said, "Oh, we're going to film it in front of an audience again, and it's going to be sets again, and we're going to concentrate on this." And then there's the promo pictures. I was like, they're all so old and fat. But the cat hasn't aged at all since 1987.
He's Barrington from Maid Marian.
Yeah. Or the Wily from Labyrinth, as I always remember him as well. Even though he wasn't in it, it was just his voice. And he was in Little Shop of Horrors as well. He was one of the guys by the flower shop when they're doing the flashback, clicking his fingers. So yeah, it's that's really good. But again, this is the thing. If you pay £3 for that and don't regret it, and that's less than 2 hours entertainment, therefore the Room is 4 times better value, isn't it? You see.
Damn you, Bouncy.
But this is the thing. Like, people will quite happily go out and they'll chuck £4 over a bar for a drink, or they'll chuck £1 on a newspaper, or £4 on a magazine. And as soon as you sort of say, "Well, there you go, there's a game for £2," people go, £2 for an iOS game that only lasts a couple of hours. Well, it's a very good game.
Is it just possible that I enjoyed it so much that I didn't want it to end and was bitter about it?
I got to the point where actually, as soon as it ended, I was like, no, not now. Because I was hitting my stride by that point. And I did think, but when I was speaking to the guys at Eurogamer, they said their priority at the moment is getting it to work on iPod and iPhone, because it's tricky to get that detail on a smaller screen. And then they're going to add more rooms to it. And straight away I thought, well, that's good. They're kind of not just concentrating on just make it an iPad app. They want to extend it out. It's reviews on, I was looking the other day, because I said to him it had more reviews than Bad Piggies had at the time I looked. If I now have another look, but yeah, it's got a remarkable amount of actual written reviews, because very often it kind of prompts you to give a review for a game, and a lot of people just skip it. And what I have found with this one is that a lot of people aren't skipping the option.
It's certainly captured the imagination, hasn't it?
Yeah, and I think that's its key strength, is that people feel obliged to talk about it and share their experience. And I've seen a lot of people tweeting up, at the end of each level it says, "Oh, tweet your progress." I've seen a lot of people tweeting the progress, which again, you don't normally see a lot of people doing. They kind of just skip that and go, "Well, I'm not interested in that bit. I want to just get on with what I'm doing." So yeah, Bad Piggies has had at time of recording 741 ratings. That doesn't obviously take into account full reviews. And as quick as iTunes Store will open, The Room has currently had, so what was that, 741, did I just say? It has had 8,347 reviews. So, you look at 10 times the amount, a phenomenal amount, and a lot of people who are just coming up with really good reviews, intricate, tactile puzzles, atmospheric. And I think that's what's good about it. Like the title screen, I don't know if you noticed, there's the door handle by the logo where you click continue or chapter select. You can actually flick the keyhole cover and spin it round. I didn't know that. I was just playing around with it, and I just touched it, and it moved. And I was like, "That's brilliant!" So I messaged him. I was like, "I just found your hidden thing in the title screen. Hats off to you, sir." And then loads of people were like, "What hidden thing? What, is there another level?" It's like, no, you could just spin a thing. But it's just that extra little bit of detail that I think that's why I really appreciate it. Hock and I were talking and said at no point does it feel unfair. Everything is in front of you. It's whether you see it or you look too hard and oversee it. It's just very, very good, and I think it's
while we've got Red Dwarf fresh in our minds,
yeah.
Can I just say that week before last, the new series of Kamen Rider Wizard, they had Cachet in it,
Right.
as in like the same character that's referenced in Final Fantasy VII and its spin-offs.
Yeah.
And he was basically the cat from Red Dwarf. It's like his 6-7 foot tall raster who just wants to sleep all the time. And the bad guys are going, "Come on, get in there and fucking kill the Kamen Rider." It's like, I want to sleep.
Brilliant. Just brilliant. Oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
like that. Right, before we go, the other thing that has been holding my attention, and this is really going to blow your mind considering I've just been complaining about iOS game prices, The World Ends With You.
Oh yeah.
Which costs $12.99
It
on
does.
iOS. And, I paid 30-40 quid for it when it came out on Nintendo DS.
Yeah.
So, 13 quid for an HD reboot with extra material seemed to me to be a bit of a bargain.
Exactly.
But again, we're back to perceived value, aren't we?
Yeah. Yeah.
And oh God, I had forgotten how good The World Ends With You is. I mean, I always tell people it is the best game Squaresoft have made in the last 10 years. But even from that context, I had forgotten how fun and addictive and off the wall and well written and visually appealing, and the music. And I don't know if you know this, but you know the theme tune I used to use for The Voice of Sex?
Mm-hmm.
The one that goes, "He's got opinions and posted suggestions but never reveals his name." That one.
Yeah.
That's actually from The World Ends With You.
All right.
The track is called Game Over, and you can YouTube it. And I recommend that you do because it's a great song. That references 2chan and stuff. But yeah, it's just great. There's only two things I would give issue to. One is that the iPad's touchscreen controls feel a little bit loose compared to the DS's, but not so that it spoils anything. And the other is that I'm not completely convinced by the fact that they've condensed it to one screen. In the original game, you had to play in two screens at once.
Yeah.
You controlled the top screen using the D-pad and the bottom screen using the touchscreen. and I'm not quite feeling it as much with the single screen and both characters on the same one. But if you've never played The World Ends With You, it's not going to even occur to you, obviously.
No.
And another thing I love about it is playing it again, having played it the first time, I'm getting all of the stuff
Yeah.
that's actually going on in the background. Like, if you've never played it, it's kind of like a spiritual reality show where where you've got a bunch of people occupying a space that resembles purgatory, and they have to play a game called the Reaper's Game for 7 days. Every day they get a different task, and a countdown gets embedded in their hand, and it starts counting down. And if they can't finish the task by the time the countdown is finished, then they'll die. But if one of the players finishes the task, then all of them are saved. It's like it's Sodom and Gomorrah, basically. It's the parable of the tenants in the vineyard, depending on which bit of the Bible you're reading, and you will all be judged on the 7th day.
Right.
It's just fantastic.
I know it's a game that I desperately wanted when it came out, and I never got round to it. And I always kind of thought, oh, I should. And it's never one that's come in through work either, because as soon as it hit my work station, I'd have bought it immediately. So obviously, whoever the people are that are buying it don't want to give it up, which obviously is a good sign. You see it sometimes with games. Like I've only ever seen Contact once, and I bought it immediately.
Or Catherine, whoever owns it, they're not selling it.
No, that's it. And I've said this to customers in the past. You know, there are certain types of games that people just buy because they want to own them, and they will own them for life. Yeah, well, not life necessarily, but they'll own that for as long as they play games because they want that investment in it. And I said, particularly that kind of game, just Asian gaming in general, when it does get over here, is released in such a limited amount that the ones that sell go to the fans and they stay with the fans. And you're very lucky if you find the occasional one kicking about. So yeah, it's one I'm definitely going to be looking out for. I think I will get it for the DS over the iPad version just because I still like using my DS. Well, I use my 3DS for stuff, and I kind of
Gameplay terms, I would certainly recommend the DS version over the iPad version, but the iPad version has got extra material.
Yeah, and according to
if you care more about the game experience than a little bit of like director's cut material, then I would definitely go for the DS one.
I mean, my inclination will be to go for the DS one, and if I like it a lot, then go ahead and get the other version. Because I had this with Broken Sword. I was talking to a friend of mine. I just dropped a rabbit on the table. Talking to a friend of mine. He hates the Broken Sword trilogy. And I said, well, the best thing
I
you
know
can
who
do.
you're talking about.
And I said, oh, no, this isn't who you think it is. It's just somebody I work with. I wouldn't even try and persuade him. He's not for turning. But yeah, and I said to him, look, just give it a go on my iPad. And I said, because it's touch the screen, it instantly brings you more into the game. And that was a case of actually where the control method is improved massively by having a touch interface. And he went, yeah, but I don't have an iPad. There's no way I'm playing it on my iPod. I was like, oh, okay. So I've not really won him over at all. But I sent him a copy of it on his PC, so hopefully he'll give it a go. But again, I think that's... I played that. I loved that game. When they said, it's coming out to iPad and it's going to have a bit extra in it and you're going to do a bit more as Nicole and you've got extra stuff drawn by the original artists, I was like, well, I want that because I want to expand upon what I enjoyed the first time while experiencing it again. So rather than just play the exact same thing, you've got that advantage of appreciating the stuff that's been added while enjoying something you already enjoy. So I think for me, that would be the way it goes. But, obviously the price point... I've heard people complaining heavily. There's also a Final Fantasy.
Yeah, people have been
Chronicles.
playing about Final Fantasy Dimensions or Chronicles or Infinities or some Final Fantasy non-specific word.
Yeah, and yet the price is fine. If you compare that to how much it costs
I paid
to get
£70 for
Right.
Final Fantasy VI.
Yeah.
when it came out on SNES.
Mm. I think
People forget they. God, we sound like an old Jewish couple, don't we? The young ones, they don't remember the old country, how it used to be.
Yeah. I found a Mega Drive case the other day. I bought Street Fighter 2 Championship
Gosh,
Edition.
yeah,
It's
Mega Drive prices.
$59.99 from Toys R Us.
I know, and the price of Phantasy Star 4 when it came out. Jesus Christ.
Yeah. I think I said to my mum, I rang her the same night. I was like, Mum, thanks. Because she bought me about 40 Mega Drive games in the space of a year and a half. And I thought we were a poor family. We were poor because she kept buying me Mega Drive games. That's the only reason I can think of. We didn't go on holiday abroad for a couple of years because she was spending every penny she had on these bloody games that I wanted. I had no value. I'd grown up on a Spectrum when my mate would just bring around a C90 with games on it. And so I never had any appreciation of value for how much those games cost until in later life I find a price sticker attached to one of them. I'm like, Jesus, 60 quid for a plastic cartridge. If they said to me, go on Xbox Live Arcade, you can buy an exact emulated version, but it'll cost you 60 quid. I'd be like, you're mental. I wouldn't even buy a bloody handheld console with it built in for 60 quid. But, yeah, people say they all, what? Yes.
Bouncy.
Yes.
About an hour ago we said this was only going to be a 15-minute episode.
Well, you know how it is.
Shall we? I think we should knock this on the head now.
Yeah, let's knock it on the head.
Before we start getting into Hungry Hungry Hippos again.
Well, there is something about Hungry Hungry Hippos I can briefly say on the subject of apps, actually. I don't know if you've seen the Zynga board games. Have you seen these?
Oh, God.
It's brilliant, because I know we talked a little bit, when we first did live shows together, we talked about the Angry Birds theme park thing, didn't we, where they did a play park themed Reddit. Zynga have done a deal with Hasbro, this is mental, to do board games based on their IP, right? So you've got Monopoly Cityville Edition, right? You've got Draw Something, which is basically just Pictionary, but it's designed to look like the game. You've got what's the word? Words with Friends, which obviously was just Scrabble, but it's just with the Words with Friends board.
I play Word Feud.
Well, but you can't get a Word Feud board game, can you? Zynga have made it. But when it came to Farmville, because obviously I've been getting into Farmville too, I thought I'm quite interested. How are they going to do? What I'd say is when you get an opportunity, do Google the Farmville game, which is basically Hungry Hungry Hippos with farm animals. I just thought, that is mental. Brilliant. Somebody went, right, Farmville. It's really popular particularly with 35 to 40-year-old women who are housewives, and we're going to turn it into a board game. How can we do that? Hungry Hungry Hippos. Everybody loves that. So
right.
Yeah, it's just mad. So there we go. I'll leave it on that note, I think.
Well, if you're going to leave it on a massive long rant, then I'm going to get a bit of material as well. Have you heard about the Kixeye lawsuit?
No. I might have done actually, but on top of my head now, I'm thinking.
Alan Patmore, who was the general manager for Cityville,
right,
has jumped ship from Zynga, taking about 700 IP details with him, and he's gone to Kixeye, and Zynga are trying to sue them, and Kixeye have issued this statement about the lawsuit, and you've got to hear this because it's just gold. Zynga is burning to the ground and bleeding top talent, and instead of trying to fix the problem, like better working environments and better products, they are resulting to the only profit center that has ever worked for them, their legal team. It is simply another case of Zynga vindictively persecuting a former employee as an individual. Given their financial situation, it's desperate. Our games have little in common with the ones that Zynga is known for. We make synchronous combat strategy games. They make asynchronous cow-clicking games. We have two of the top 7 highest grossing games on Facebook. Why on earth would we want to emulate a business that has seen a 75% decline in share prices? According to their S1, the games average 0.06 cent APR. Our games generate 20 times that. You do the math. Oh no, he didn't.
That's a good put down, that, isn't it?
That is a Swiss watch of a put
That's
down.
actually a zinger.
Ah! Oh snap!
Bouncy just said that. Take it home with you.
Exactly. I made myself laugh at that as
You've been
well.
listening to the Holocaust Bantersnatch. I am going to exert some control as host now and tell you all to get to bed.
Good night.
Good night.
Bantersnatch.
This is the Bantersnatch.
Awesome. Candace.